Okay, we'd like to welcome everyone and call to order the study session of the West Valley City Council. It is January 2nd, 2024. We're beginning at 4:30 p.m. in the multipurpose room of West Valley City Hall. We have all members of the council present: Councilman Norfelt, Councilman Christensen, Councilman Fitzsimmonu, Councilman Whetstone, Councilman Harmon, Councilman Hume, myself. We're joined at the table by our interim assistant city manager, Mr. Flores, and Ms. Kamick, our city recorder. We have the minutes of December 12th, 2023. Turn those to the council for discussion or a motion.
For approval of those minutes. Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And those stand approved. For our meetings tonight, did anyone have any questions, or were there any changes on the regular or all the other agencies?
No changes on any of them.
Okay, any questions from the council? Okay, thank you. We'll now go to our public hearings, and we'll begin with application GP3 2023. I'll turn the time over to Jody Knapp.
I'm gonna try and pull this up on here first. All right, so Jody Knapp with Planning and Zoning. And this application here is an amendment to our major street plan, which is part of our general plan document. And so that's just sort of our, well, in this case, an actual roadmap of how development is proposed for the city. So the area we're discussing is circled in red there, and I'll zoom in. So it's just the roadways between 2700 West and 3200 West. And so the two pink lines, and then the blue line in the middle is the current general or current major street plan designation for a connection between those two roadways. As you can see, there's not a lot of connectivity in there. So this is a very important connection. So this proposal modifies that existing layout, and then so there's three proposed changes. So the first is to remove that blue portion on the bottom of the screen, and then extend 2210 south. So this one right here. So the roadway is currently a cul-de-sac that ends here. So this proposal would be to extend that through to Arnold Way, and then provide this north-south connection. And Arnold Way currently ends here in a cul-de-sac. So continue that through, and then out to 2700 West at 2365 South. So again, this connection is important just so that it provides an alternative between 3200 West and 2700 West. And the other reason that's important is because this area up here on the north, it gets very congested, and the exit ramp from 201 to the frontage road is very close. And so the intent of this is to pull some of that traffic further south. Eventually, we may have to eliminate the left-hand turns in that intersection altogether. So this just does provide that future connection to get out to 2700 West. The blue line, there's just construction that's in that area now that just makes this pretty cost prohibitive. And so this is really the best alternative to get those connections out between those two major corridors. And I do have photos that just show a more, this is just a detail from our Public Works Department to show what that would look like. With sidewalk, we typically have that on the north and east sides of the street. So that's what this layout is showing. So there would not be sidewalks on both sides of the street. It would just be one side, which is a standard 66-foot right of way. And then just what the area looks like now. So at 2700 West, Arnold Way, where the cul-de-sac is. Just a little bit further south on Arnold Way. And looking to the west. And then on 2210, looking from the other cul-de-sac. believe that's the last one. But again, this is just an update to the major street plan, so it's part of the general plan, so not any construction in the works from the city. It's just putting this in place now so that as properties do develop, we know where those connections should be.
Thank you. Any questions from the council? Okay, thank you so much. All right, we'll now move on to application ZT5 2023, and we'll turn the time over to Mr. Pastor.
Thank you, Mayor. This first ordinance change is one that's proposed by staff, and it's response to some changes the state legislature made in this past legislative session. So I'm going to just pull up the issue paper here. So there's HB 406 and SB 174. So first of all, with HB 406, what that did, among other things, is to prohibit cities from requiring a bond for private landscaping. And so, for example, we, at times, if there's a commercial project, let's say that is wrapping up in the winter time, instead of saying, hey, you have to have your landscaping, and we would do a bond for that landscaping just to, as sort of an added level of security to make sure that gets put in the springtime, so they could go ahead and open up without having landscaping completed. So basically now state law prohibits us from doing that. So our recourse in that scenario would just be enforcement. Basically, if the landscaping doesn't get put in the springtime in that scenario, we just have to enforce. So that's the first change. The second one's more, a little bit more involved. So that's Senate Bill 174. So what that did, among other things, is to prohibit a city council review of subdivision plats for 3 different types of plats. So it'd be single family homes, 2-family homes, and townhomes. So basically the legislature said if it's a plat for one of those 3 types of development, the city council cannot be part of that review process. Okay. Now what we have done in the ordinance that says before you is it basically removes council review of all subdivision plats, and I'll explain why. So the first is we thought it would be confusing to have in the code 2 different processes, right? You have one process if you're this type of subdivision, and another process if you're say a commercial subdivision. But the other is that subdivision applications are administrative. So just to make a distinction between, again, administrative versus legislative, I know you've heard this before, just as a quick reminder. So legislative decision like a zone change, the city has, or the council's broad discretion about whether to approve or deny that. On an administrative decision, it really is just a question of, does this application meet the city's ordinances? And if it does, we're essentially bound to approve that application. So that's the reason why we essentially just said we would take the council out of the subdivision review process, since the council, or since the state has forced our hand on at least some application types, which frankly represent probably at least half of the subdivision applications we get. So that summarizes this one. And again, if the council prefers to have the 2 process types, we can do that. But we thought, given that they're administrative, it just made more sense to make a change across the board.
Okay, to the council?
Is that effective today or when?
So the law becomes effective on February 1st. And so at that point, we would be required to no longer bring at least those 3 subdivision types to the council. But this particular ordinance wouldn't become effective until next week when the council votes on it.
Removing the council from that review process does not necessarily preclude someone on the council who would like to inquire and gain information about it. So that just wouldn't be voting on anything else.
That's correct. Yes.
Thank you.
So we just have to make sure on the rezone portion of the application that we get everything we want exactly how we want. So when does engineering come into effect with having to adjust the subdivision if we come into problems with drainage or anything like that?
Right, so that,
We start asking for that before?
so the engineering does come in as part of the subdivision application. And my understanding in talking with our legal department is that's not something we can require as part of the zone change application as far as engineering is concerned. I mean, another thing would be that if there are certain elements of a subdivision that we're concerned about, we can actually just change the code, right? And at that point, they would have to abide by whatever standards are in place, which we have done before. As an example, we recently made a change about private streets, which is actually another item coming up on the agenda, where basically we just said, hey, that regardless of whether that comes to council, it's like that's in the ordinance, so they just have to abide by that.
Right. But at the zoning and other steps, we wouldn't know about engineering when it's done after. We can't change anything.
Unless if we changed our, again, zoning ordinance or engineering standards, then at that point, they would have to abide by whatever we have in.
So we
those
could add
standards.
engineering to the beginning of the process instead of the very end?
Or just, I guess what I'm saying here is that if you think about so whatever's adopted in the ordinance, if we make a change or whatever, if we make a change to our engineering standards, when someone applies for a subdivision, they're bound by what's adopted at that point.
Okay.
So if there's something we don't like about what's happening now in our subdivisions, we can make that adjustment so that then any future ones, we have to abide by that.
Okay.
When we do a zone change, there's also a development agreement usually attached to that, so we need to make sure that's spelled out enough to where we feel like we can let loose the developer to do what they want to do.
True. And I know we've been again using development agreements for many years now. And really at the subdivision stage, again, because it's an administrative application, as long as they're checking the boxes, there's really not much the council can or condition at that point if they meet the requirements.
Thank you. And then we'll move on to application Z7 2023. Mr. Pastrick.
Thank you. So speaking of changes to subdivision standards, so it was last year the council requested that the ordinance be changed to prohibit private streets. And there was one exception, that was for subdivisions within manufacturing zones. And really at the time, I think the main concern from the council is you had, particularly in residential developments, where residents would be kind of saddled with that long-term maintenance of a private street and just the burden to the residents for that. Well, the way the code was written is it essentially says, in order to prohibit private streets, is if you have a piece of property, that property must have its own access to a public street without crossing over another piece of property, okay? And that, of course, works in residential settings. The one thing I think at the time that was sort of an unintended consequence was if you think about a pad site, and I'll share my screen here for a minute to show a couple of examples of this. So just a couple of examples. Here's the Winco site on 5600 West and north of Parkway Boulevard. So you can see there's a number of pad sites like this Maverick and this multi-tenant building here, where they actually drive through kind of another property to get to the street. So they will drive over the main Winco parcel or maybe another pad site to get out to the street. Here's another example. This is the shopping center on the northeast corner of 5600 West and 31st South. We have Kohl's and a PetSmart and a few others, where you can see these pad sites here by themselves don't have their own access to the street, but drive through another piece of property. And so what this code change would do is make that exception to say, hey, if it's a a kind of a pad type development where you have what we call a commercial complex, where you have multiple parcels in a shopping center that are kind of relying on each other for access. That would be another exception to that don't drive over another parcel rule. So any questions on this one?
Any questions?
So is this gonna be just for commercial manufacturing?
Correct. Yeah,
So residential is still excluded from,
that's correct.
So do you know if we require them to have more road base or to build their roadways in a manner of a public street, or are they still just like a parking lot and really not that engineered that well?
Yeah, it's just part of the parking lot in that situation
Okay,
where it's all maintained privately, and they typically will have, in fact, are required to have cross access easements on those properties.
okay. I don't think I ever realized that each one of those were their own parcels. I just figured it was one big parcel with just a lot of little buildings on it.
We have both situations. Some
Yeah.
cases, they're not their own parcel, but others they are. So it just depends.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, thank you. Now we'll go to our resolutions and we'll go to resolution 24-01. Mr. Patrick.
Thank you. I'm on a roll here. So we have, this is an interagency agreement between the city and the State Department of Workforce Services. So as the council knows, we had a temporary homeless shelter in the city that opened in the old state liquor store at 3381 South Redwood Road. That opened back in November. And it will be closing at the end of April of this year. And as part of that, the state receives a mitigation funding from cities across the state. And that money is distributed to cities that host a shelter. And so a portion of those funds go to cities that are hosting in our situation, a temporary shelter. And basically 10% of that money that's collected statewide is distributed to cities that have a temporary shelter based on the bed count, okay? And so based on that state formula, the amount of funds that the city would receive under this contract for public safety purposes is $408,776 and change. And so again, the specific purpose here would be to cover, or at least cover part of the public safety costs to the city. So police and fire expenses as it relates to responding to the shelter itself, as well as responding to transient activity just in the surrounding area around the shelter. And so that's the purpose for this agreement. The city's responsibility in this is, of course, we have to submit documentation showing the staff time that's involved, but also they ask for reporting on calls for service and other metrics to show that we're tracking our responses and how the city was impacted from the shelter, comparing now versus calls before the shelter opened. So
Okay, to the council. So my question is, did they do the bed count from the normal or from the code blue nights?
I believe it's from the typical bed count, but I can clarify that with if they did because our normal bed count's 170, but during code blue it can go to 200. So I can ask that question.
Okay. Yeah, we want to make sure they're taking that into account.
The question that I had, I asked Chief Jacobs, is this new estimate enough? Or do we need to estimate just a little higher?
Sure. So I can maybe touch on that for a minute. So we looked at what we feel like the needs would be to to be able to respond. And so right now, what's happening is you have essentially 17-hour coverage. So you have 3 shifts from the police department. You have 7 to 1, 1 to 6, and 6 to midnight. And the reason that late hour is not covered is because that's when people are in bed and kind of, hopefully sleeping at that point, right? It's during the other times where we see the greatest need. And so that estimate, at least on the police side, is based on maintaining that coverage from now until when the shelter closes. And we'll just have to, kind of see as the time goes on, it hopefully, we don't see any spikes and don't need to have further coverage. But based on what we've seen now that the shelter's been open for a couple of months, we feel like that's the coverage we'll need.
Okay. And this will be adequate.
So, yeah, so based on the memo that Mr. Powell sent out this morning, so the mitigation funding from the state is a little short of about half of what our estimate is. The other half, we would need to come back with a budget opening to figure out how to cover that cost.
We're going to have to come back with a second budget.
Right, yeah. Our preference would be to not do that. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, we could do the budget opening for the state funds as well as for the additional funding to cover the gap.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we'll now go to resolution 24-02. We'll turn the time over to Mr. Morris.
Hello, Mayor and Council. This is a fairly routine submission. Each year we have to notify Salt Lake County, who's the lead agency in our home consortium, on how we're going to spend our allocation of home funds. And so that's what you have before you.
Any questions? All right, thank you. We'll now go to resolution 24-03. Mr. Erickson.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. As you know, when we build a park, we like to purchase the site furnishings ourselves. We found that we save money over markup from contractors when they do that. We've also found that by having our suppliers get their have their people install them, that it also saves us a few percentage points as well, which they all add up and make it so we can afford the next park more quickly. So as part of that, so this issue is for the pavilion purchase for Sunset Hills Park, which a few weeks ago you approved the general contractor to begin construction up there.
Great. Do you know roughly what the savings are by doing it ourselves? Oh, sorry.
It's about 2% is what we've found.
Okay. All right. Sorry. Anybody else have any questions since I took Scott's? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. We'll now go to resolution 24-04. We'll turn the time over to Mr. Johnson. What?
Surely you all know what a Marshmaster is. This is kind of a unique request that we're making to the city council for this purchase. And so I put together a few slides to tell the story. We are requesting the authorization to purchase an amphibious vehicle for the use of wetland maintenance. It's called the brand that we're proposing to purchase is a Marshmaster. And that's a picture of Dan Ward, one of our mechanics, checking out the state of Utah's Marshmaster as a wetland maintenance tool. So really the biggest problem we have in our wetlands that we need maintenance on is the Phragmites australis. It's an invasive weed that I don't know where it came from, but it's not native to Utah. And over the last 10 to 15 years has kind of overtaken a lot of the waterways. And it's quite a common weed. You'll see it all over the place, but the problems that exist with Phragmites are fire. It really just will choke out a wetland and take up every bit of life that exists in those things. And they're very invasive. Plus, we've had lots of problems with people kind of, they're very easy to hide in and have become a place for campers to find a place to be. And so, so they're kind of a problem. And we have about 60 acres of wetland throughout the city that we maintain, whether it be on our own property or areas along the Jordan River that we deal with. And so the way that we manage Phragmites is a very repeated process of smash and spray. There's about a 1 month window in August and September that you can smash them and then spray them with an herbicide, an aquatic herbicide that, you know, as you repeat that year after year, you can actually have an effect in taking care of and managing Phragmites. And so what we've been using for this in the past is it's an Argo SUV, or not SUV, an ATV, not an SUV. That would be, probably wouldn't be amphibious, but it's an ATV that's designed for hunting that we purchased and just smash the Phragmites. It's small. It's like I said, it's designed for hunting. It's really not much wider than a traditional ATV. And it's not designed for this. It's worked okay. We have a little trailer that we tow behind us in that ATV that we put the herbicide in to spray the Phragmite. But we've had this past year, the machine was completely non-functional. It's just not designed for what we've been using it for. And so it was a good fix it got us through kind of our first iteration of Phragmite maintenance throughout the city. But after a short period of time, it's really just, it's not designed for what we use it for. And we'd like to replace it with something that actually is designed for this type of maintenance work. So this is the property that the city owns at 6800 West and between Beagley Road, the Ryder Canal, and Parkway Boulevard, just west of 6400 West. And this is an example of kind of what the Phragmites looked like. So the picture on the left is from July of 2015. Then that pond was completely choked off. And that's about when we bought this property in 2014. And shortly thereafter, we began trying to clear those, to open that water back up and get rid of the Phragmites. So you can see in the picture on the right, the tracks of our vehicle that just goes back and forth, smashing it. And it's slow. It's a very slow process with the machine that we've got, but it works. And here's some photographs from November 21, just an aerial photograph showing how we were able to keep them at bay. And then kind of what it looks like now on that east side of that pond. There's still a lot of Phragmite out there on that pond that we have not eradicated yet. But through the repeated process of smashing and spraying, we've been able to get rid of it, and at least in certain areas. But there's more to do. But I guess part of why we need to purchase this piece of equipment is that it takes us so long. We have such a narrow window that we really can't get all the Phragmites maintained and smashed and sprayed that we need to during that window. Because the piece of equipment goes so slow. And so this is just a list of some of the areas throughout the city that we actually have Phragmite maintenance that we need to do. So that's maybe one of the most interesting things you'll study all day, and I'll take any questions you might have.
Any questions from the council?
It shows that it's not requiring a budget opening.
No, we budgeted for it. We included it in our budget.
Okay, so that would be a year ago. We know we were going to buy this a year ago then.
In July, we were planning to purchase it, and we've just been making arrangements from then till now to make the purchase here.
Okay.
And we're planning to pay for it with stormwater utility funds.
Given that this is the tool that you're saying is ideal versus what had been used previously, does that impact the number of folks that are needed to operate this, or the number of hours that they'll be doing this with?
It will still require, we ran a 2-person crew with the previous equipment, and we still will with this equipment, but it'll go a lot faster. The previous equipment, you actually had to make several passes over an area to kind of, because it isn't wide enough, or it's not, you've got the 2 tracks on the outside. But this piece has actually, it'll smash the full width of the piece of equipment in one pass. Plus it actually has the reservoir for the herbicide to be, it's distributed right off that machine and not on the little trailer that follows it. So I've estimated just by the number of passes, I did a little bit of math, and I took a football field and estimated it would take about 53 passes with the old piece of equipment to smash it, and approximately 20. So, we're 2.5 times or more faster, more efficient, just because of the size of the machine. But that doesn't take into account the actual speed that the machine will go. The new machine will go quite a bit faster. So we will still use the same number of people, but I estimate that we will be able to actually get through the list of things we need to do during that maintenance window when it's actually effective on getting the plant to take up the herbicide and actually absorb it and have it take effect.
Thank you.
So,
Go ahead.
But it's a big price tag for a month-long activity. I
Yep.
was curious if there was opportunity to either contract that work out or interagency with another city that may have similar
Yep.
needs.
That's a great question. And I don't know of any other city that has a piece of equipment like this. The state of Utah does, but they're not interested in helping us because they've got a much larger supply of wetlands that really have to be dealt with within that same maintenance window. And I'm not aware of any contractors that do this type of work. We've not put out any kind of an RFP, which would be a better way to know, but I don't know. We could potentially find somebody that would be willing to do it, but I think in the long run, we would have the potential to pay more than this. We anticipate that this is a 20-year piece of equipment.
Do you know what, if I just look at Farmington or Utah County, there's a lot of wetlands in those areas. Do you know what they do, what they use for their maintenance?
Farmington City, I don't know, but I know all of those wetlands, around Utah Lake and Great Salt Lake that the state of Utah manages, they have, this is the machine that they use.
And then I did go to the Marshmaster website because I wanted to see all the details.
Mhm.
And it shows right on their website that they'll lease it out for short-term periods also. Do we know what the costs are if we rented it just for 45 days?
No, we don't. We could explore that. And I don't know if they would have a machine locally. Utah's not, I think you could easily get that kind of a solution in a Louisiana kind of an environment where there's lots and lots of wetlands. We could certainly explore that, but I don't know the answer if that would be an option available locally. My guess is that we would not have a piece of equipment like this available locally for lease, but we could look into that.
So do we have a parking stall? So this will be inside storage when it's not being used?
Yeah, the current machine that we use is stored inside the shop, the operations maintenance facility, and the new one will be as well.
So it's going to spray the herbicide on there and it'll be taken in by where it's cut off. Do we know, is the Phragmite seeds? Do they just drop their seeds at that time, or are they not active seeds at that time, that 1 month period?
They drop their seeds. I don't know. I don't remember when I believe the seeds would germinate in the springtime. But the experts that we brought on when we first started doing this told us that it's an August to September timeframe that the herbicide is effective. And Phragmites spreads by seeds, and they also send these little root runners out that they're actually quite interesting to look. To follow. They go and then they just plant something down into the ground, and so.
So my other question is, if we're knocking them down, the seeds are getting dispersed, are we putting anything on a pre-emergent so the next year they don't? reseed themselves?
I don't know
So
the
that
answer to that.
eventually this stops being a reoccurring?
I think that this, that whatever is in the herbicide that we spray on them takes care of that, but I don't know for sure. I'd have to talk with our people.
Yeah, I'd probably check and see if we need to do a spring or another spray that is a
Sure.
pre-emergent.
Oh, that's a great
So they
question.
don't pop back up,
That's a great,
because otherwise it'll never end.
yeah.
And if you can figure out either baling them so the seeds don't sit there. And by leaving the plant there, you're protecting the seeds so it germinates easier through the winter,
Yeah, we've tried,
like a perennial.
yeah, it was about 10 years ago. We actually worked with the fire department to try to burn them and could not get them to ignite. Sometimes they'll go. You have to have kind of the right conditions, and that particular day it wouldn't.
It's supposed to go and
We
it
know.
goes a wildfire.
Yes,
Yeah.
That's when they'll burn.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay. I would just appreciate if you'd look further into the germination and
Sure.
if we can put a pre-emergent
Yep.
on.
I will ask our experts on that,
Okay.
because I am not the expert on that, but
I figured there's one kind of close.
yeah.
Jason's there. Okay,
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
all right, now we have our consent agenda. Did anyone have any questions on the 11 items on the consent agenda? Nobody? Okay. We'll now go then to the council calendar. Did anyone have any questions on the calendar? Okay, seeing none, we'll go to the potential future agenda items. And we have two. So Nicole sent out an email. I'm not sure if anyone had time to read it. Concerning a new ALJ. We haven't had one in case we have employment issues, right? Do you want to explain this one?
Sure.
Okay, we'll let John do it.
All right. So, yes, if we have any, employee appeals, on discipline, those appeals will go through a discipline hearing officer, and the former individual we had contracted, that contract expired. And so we just need to go through a selection process for a new one. And part of that selection process, we need a member of the council to volunteer to sit and select two candidates, which will be provided to the city manager. We are hoping to do those next week, depending on schedules. It should take 2 hours at most. So don't necessarily need an answer here right now, but if someone could respond to Nicole and let us know if you're available and want to do it.
Do you have a date?
don't think we have anything.
We didn't pick a date because we wanted to kind of leave it open depending on schedules.
Okay, so we'll leave it up to you to contact Nicole if you're interested in helping out with that. And then,
Sorry, when do you want to hear back from them?
tomorrow.
Tomorrow would be great, Thursday
Yeah.
would be fine, but
Not Friday.
Friday's fine too.
Things set in place for next week.
yeah, we just want to
Okay.
get it going.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. And then, I have this harebrained idea to, give more people the opportunity to serve as mayor pro tem. So I've spoken to I've spoken to everyone, all the council members. And everybody seemed to be in support of changing the mayor pro tem term instead of 4 years. My idea was 2. One council member said some cities do it yearly. So was just gonna ask staff to come up with a new ordinance, but I didn't know if you wanted, I mean, we can't vote now, but kind of give an idea of whether you'd rather go 1 year or 2 year and just give more people the opportunity to serve in that function. So I don't know if
Be a
you,
rotation or an election?
Rotation, I think that's.
it doesn't matter to me, election or rotation.
Yeah, there's no process really spelled out in state code, so you as a council can basically drive that however you'd like.
Yeah,
A little more like we do with the redevelopment or the, right, the housing authority and that kind of.
Yeah, and see, for my thought, it was an election every time. Not just a rotation, because some may have the time to do it and some may not have the time
Sure.
to fill in. So it's a more,
Self-nominate or nominate someone else. kind of.
it's a busier schedule than just our RDAs and stuff. So that's why I thought election would be better, but I'm open for either way.
Dawn, you just told us earlier today, and you're gonna be this term gonna be the last term, so why don't you start from there? So,
Well, we have to change the ordinance first. So for this discussion,
As of that moment, it was.
that still might change 4 times, right?
Yeah.
So,
For those who have served in that role, does it make a difference whether it was 2 years or 1 year or 4 years?
Oh, to be honest with you, I'm grateful to have the opportunity to work with Mayor Ken Land, and she very, learned a lot from her. I think it's great. It's like, for example, like before Christmas, we sat down, we talk a lot of things. And she very consistent and she very firm with her decision. Here in our city, just like we sitting right now, very a new environment. It's how hard work she is, and you can go out and talk to elected officers out there and see there's people, they tell her she's a hard worker.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I learned a lot.
I guess I could phrase that as, would you have felt like you didn't have good experience if it was only 2 years instead of 4 years? I'm asking just.
No, I think it's, to be honest with you, she and I, we brought it up and we talk about, discuss, but I think it's, I look up there, our city is the same thing, need to have a rotation. One way or other, I'm gonna bring it up to. So 1 year, 2 years, I think is, all the cities that do 1 year.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think maybe quicker that way, but, I don't know, but you guys, up to you guys.
I have a strong
Yeah.
preference either way. Because I've never raised my hand for that role. So.
So you go against.
Those who are
you
interested
literally
in it.
sit on your hands for that one, right?
Some of the eastern cities, actually, it's one of the elected positions that the
On the ballot.
ballot,
Oh, really?
mayor pro tem.
Interesting.
Some
Like
of
the
you-
governor and lieutenant governor.
Mhm. Some of
That's
you-
different.
Some of you even have their own opposite parties. cities.
Look, but I think right here, it's kind of like we serve a community, so I think we can give a chance to every single one of us to do that, you know what I'm saying?
Sounds like we're all okay with that concept. It's just that term, right? Is it 2 years or 1 year or?
And then is it elected or rotated?
Yeah.
I think, I would be more in favor of elected.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So you can self-nominate or nominate someone. So,
Like the elected option, and I would think that a 2-year term to coincide with
Oh, the elections too.
Yeah.
That's
Be a
right.
new council every 2 years. I think that makes sense.
Okay, hey, we'll do that. So we'll ask whoever writes those up to do that. All right. Did anybody else have any future agenda items they'd like to bring up?
I have one.
Sure.
I think it's the right time for me to bring it up. The person came to our city hall right here at 8 AM in the morning. And that person was waiting for our city employees, one of our city employees. And the city employee showed up at 9 o'clock, 9 AM. And the person, several of you guys opened at 7 AM and I came here at 8 AM and I wait for you for 1 hour. And the city employee real upset about it and very rude to that person. This story they brought up to me about a few years ago, and the one of the employees in our city says, "Tom, here, I want to share with you. I know you're not shy with the stuff I watch in a study meeting and regular meeting, but I want you to keep it. I don't want you to print it up. Because if you print it up, they will go up to you. And they are capable of doing that, Tom. So I brought up once long ago, maybe 3 years ago, and I brought up again last month. But in this month, I think that's the right time for me to elaborate a little bit about that matter. That matter is not my decision or my idea, but it came from employees, not only one, but multiple here in our city. Yeah,
So if we're gonna be talking about employees,
yeah.
can we do that in a closed?
So I can do that in a closed meeting, but thing is,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, we just don't wanna,
That's why I kind of use kind of like child protect.
okay,
But yeah, maybe just that way, we go that way. The reason, because there's a see right here, listening to that conversation, the people, not us, not like we as policymakers, but the city employees already see that there's something wrong with that. You know what I'm saying? And they say, well, Tom, I want to keep it. I don't want you just to print it up because they're gonna go up to you. The first thing, the second thing is what the current rule or current schedule we have here for Monday to Friday is not working. Not only us, but the people in the city, they see that. Yeah, not working. If you come here like Friday, I hear Friday a lot, and I see maybe 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 people, they come here and ask for here and there. Somehow the thing changing in our city. Just I walk around my district just last year, and I have seen a lot of things change. Not only for 3,500 households for voting in our election is 2 years. But thing is, the change, and I think is we need to think about it. I would love to have a long weekend with my family. I personally do. But I cannot turn away people, they need help in our city.
okay, thank
Yeah.
you. Anyone else? Okay. Council reports.
I noticed that we don't have an update about the new city manager on our agenda. Is that because it's still the same as it was last time?
Correct. Yep. We just didn't have an update for you right now. I will tell you, we are tentatively planning for Scott from Appion, who you'd met with, to be here on the 16th to present to you guys.
So in 2 weeks.
Yep.
Okay.
Tentatively, so.
Is that again?
2 weeks from today.
16th.
Yep.
Okay. Just had to load them out. Okay. Anything else on council reports?
I would report that just before the Christmas break, Salt Lake County Healthy Communities Coalition met for kind of their year-end debrief. And Healthy West Valley received some really great accolades, and even Charles Otis from Healthy Sandy even recommended that all of the other healthy communities should be operating the way that Healthy West Valley does. So I give all of that credit to Craig and Alex and Kevin and the team and others who participate on that. And congratulations for that work, is serving as a model, exemplary model for the other coalitions around the valley.
Great, thank you. Okay,
I don't know if we want to do this before we hire a new city manager or after, but I'd like to see if there's support to review and approve the personnel manual.
okay, back on future agenda items. Okay. Okay,
You're gonna bring up about the strategic plan.
I can. So let's just go back to potential future. For all the other things we need to talk about. So I was gonna get with John and John.
Don't have to remember.
Well, Well, I thought about it, but I haven't had a chance to talk to them about a possible date. But maybe if everybody could let us know when a date would be good. So, I've spoken to everybody. My 2-minute call may not have gotten everything, but to have a strategic plan meeting before we hire the new city manager to have all the directors come and give us their top 3 to 5 wish lists for the new budget and kind of figure out the direction we want the city to go. And so have a strategic plan for that. I don't know what everybody's schedule is as to what would work and what wouldn't work. Everybody I spoke to was good with that. So I don't know if there's a date. I know everybody's schedules are tight. So I don't know if we want to do only Saturdays, if we want to do a Saturday or a Friday, Saturday. Or even that we have a 5th Tuesday, but that wouldn't be enough time to take care of everything, probably.
What this month or?
Either January or February, I think would be fine. I don't know if what people's schedules are as far as Fridays. I don't know what. If you have school breaks with your kids and going on vacation, or if you'll be around, what there is. So I was going to talk to both Mr. Flores and Mr. Evans and see if they had any suggestions either.
Would love to go, read this month, and as soon as we can.
Sooner the better.
Could we do the 30th, which is the 5th
Tuesday.
Tuesday, and then that next Saturday in the morning if we want
That works.
to
Would
retreat.
anybody else?
And I think if you have it structured the way you've suggested with some clear objectives that folks would be prepared to come in within a concise time frame and present what they like and
Right.
kind of move through.
And maybe try and get all those done on Tuesday and then Saturday have the,
And even if they don't get all done, I just think giving folks a heads up so they come
Okay.
in with concise presentations would facilitate it.
okay. And then is it fine to just hold it in this room? You don't have to go anywhere fancy. Cultural Center
This
basement's
isn't
too cold.
fancy.
Well, the Cultural Center basement's too cold, so let's pick somewhere besides that. I mean, we've had it at a few different places. You could have it, well, I don't know the schedule of the golf courses. This one just seems to be available on Tuesday nights and Saturdays, so. Perfect. Okay. Okay, so let's plan it that way. Everybody's looking at the calendars. Everybody good with both of those?
What was the second date? So there's the 30th or
30th and then the 3rd.
3rd of February.
Would we
The
want
Saturday.
the 30th to start at 4:30, like a study meeting, or would you guys want to start earlier or later? How?
So I already have a conflict that day, so.
The 30th?
Yeah.
I lied, yeah, I'm not here on the 30th.
Yeah. You're not here at all?
I'll be in Seattle. I could tune in if that works for everybody else.
I just know I'm speaking to a Girl Scout group at 4:30 that afternoon.
I have drill on the 3rd.
Great. See, that's why we're doing this. Okay. So how about the 9th and 10th? That's a Friday and Saturday. The Friday may not, no.
What if we tried to get the departments to present things,
In this meeting?
not all in the same meeting,
That's
Right.
not a bad idea.
like we've done before? I
Right.
mean, this doesn't give them
Lot of
a
time.
lot of heads up, but nothing would, right? And I mean, I think that's easier than expecting all the department heads to come on a Friday or a Saturday.
Or even all of us here on the same day.
Yeah,
I like that
and
idea.
it's probably easier to absorb everything that's
Broken up?
broken up instead of all in one day.
Okay, so I'll work with Nicole and let's try and probably have two department heads come or present each night on Tuesdays. Because do our agendas look really busy?
It's hard, I'm not sure what we have coming
Yeah.
up, but
We'll do our
yeah,
best.
we can absolutely work everything in, so.
Okay. So then is there a Friday or Saturday that would work well for the take all those notes and put a plan?
Sort of February 9th, February 10th.
Well, the 10th. Yeah, Saturday, the 10th.
That works.
10th.
If we want an update from each department, I don't know if we would get them all done by the 9th and 10th.
Because you gotta give them at least a week or so, huh? So closer to the 24th.
23rd is a great day.
Can we do a Friday, the 23rd?
All day or
Till we're done?
afternoon or what?
Till we're done?
As of right now, I'm tied up every Friday morning.
Every Friday morning? No substitutes?
Start at noon.
Well, if I could get a substitute if I knew about it ahead of time.
Okay. So the 23rd?
And that's also in flux because they're moving between two buildings too right now.
Okay.
One in Jordan River and one in Taylor's.
The 23rd.
Okay, let's go for February 23rd. Haven't heard a hard no yet. Okay. Okay,
Let me for right now, so if we have more things to do or more things to talk about, we can.
Yeah.
Do one more after that.
Yep.
Okay.
so then I'll talk to you after, and then next week we'll have it closed if we need to.
Sure.
Okay.
I was just gonna add, if we want to discuss the policy manual, if you want to do that in the strategic plan meeting, that might be a good time to discuss that.
Yeah, I think that would work. Okay,
What time will we start on that day?
7 a.m.
6.
9 o'clock would work well.
Start with calisthenics and all that good stuff.
Eat breakfast at home and come at 9.
9 a.m.
Okay.
Lunch, you know,
We'll figure that out.
okay.
We'll probably have something brought in. Everybody will have to go out and run around the building 10 times and then come on in. Let's write all these all over.
For these presentations,
Yeah, I'll get with you and kind of,
yeah, what do you guys want? Like,
I've talked to everybody, pretty much just what special items they want in the new budget.
So many Marshmasters.
Yeah. More detailed what they're gonna work into their budgets and what their needs are and what they kind of see for the next 5 years.
budget focus.
Because I'm not sure in the budget we see marsh masters, so we need to see those kind of things ahead of time. So it's not a, what? It's a, oh yeah, we were gonna buy that, we knew that. Plus what's, a whole lot of knowledge,
You said it's already in the budget.
yeah. But I think there would have been less questions if everybody knew that.
For me, and feel free to shoot this down, but because I'm a little, I guess, more interested in knowing what's working great that they would like to see continued in the next administration with a new manager and new iterations of the council. And
Yeah.
then what's something that they've been trying to get done or fund or position they've needed for 4 or 5 years and we haven't been able to make it work. That's kind of what I'm interested in knowing.
It's gonna be a long list.
Within a 10-minute presentation.
3 to 5, 3 to 5.
Your top, give us your top.
But the future of what they want to do with their department would be
No, I
really
think-
nice.
Yeah,
I
it
agree
goes,
with that.
it goes
That's
in
good.
with what you're saying. I'm just.
Yeah, no, I think that's really good. Yeah, everybody back there is doing rock, paper, scissors, who's first, who's second, who's third. Who has the most time for their presentation? Any other questions?
I don't think so.
Okay. All right, we don't have a need for a closed session today. So we just have one more order of business.
Motion to adjourn.
All in favor, say aye,
Aye.
and we stand adjourned. See you at 6:30 in the other room.